Good morning, students. We've been looking into the glory that was the imperial capital of Vijayanagar and the empire of Vijayanagar. Of course, students, today the NCRT website, just like yesterday, um, it is not working, and that's why I wouldn't be able to, follow the screen. So please take out page number 174. We looked at, I'm sorry, we looked at the map, and I told you how important the map was, and particularly the rivers, the crisscrossing of rivers, because all the great civilizations naturally are born around rivers, and their main commercial activity happens around them. So this is very important. Now, coming to the paragraph here on page number 74, we saw yesterday, of course, that how Vijayanagar Empire was destroyed by the Mughals from the north in 1565. uh, but looking at what here it is trying to tell you is that the relations between the Mughals and the Vijayanagar Empire and was always not that bad. The Mughals, particularly not just in north for that matter, but even the Muslims now, the Muslim empires in southern India. So what it is trying to tell you is that it was not that, of course, that the Muslims destroyed it. Together, they destroyed Vijayanagar Empire when the battle was done. The combined armies of basically Bijapur, Ahmednagar, and Golconda. But it is telling you that the situation was not always the same. Although the armies of the Sultan were responsible for the destruction of the city of Vijayanagar, relations between the sultans and the rayas were not always or inevitably hostile, in spite of the religious differences. Krishnadev Rai, for example, supported some claimants to power in the sultanates and took pride in the title establisher of the Yavana kingdom. Similarly, the Sultan of Bijapur had intervened to resolve the succession dispute in Vijayanagar following the death of Raja Krishnadev Rai. Just imagine, uh, you know, so in how comfortable it essentially shows how comfortable the neighboring kingdoms were with each other, and how they were kind of also, in a way, if I may use the word, they trusted each other, right, not to cross each other's boundaries. And naturally that was the reason, and that must have been the reason why the Sultan of Bijapur, once Raja Krishnadev Rai was no more and the battle of succession erupted in Vijayanagar kingdom, it was the Sultan of Bijapur who used his influences and intervened um, uh, to actually decide who would finally rule Vijayanagar after the death of Raja Krishnadev Rai. In fact, the Vijayanagar kings were keen to ensure that the stability of sultanates and vice versa. So it is saying that the Vijayanagar kings had also traditionally wanted the kingdoms of Bijapur and Ahmed and Golconda to survive and flourish, and similarly, all these three kingdoms also wanted the Vijayanagar Empire to be a flourishing empire, because it benefited everyone. Because if everyone is wealthy, everyone is making money, everyone is happy, then naturally you produce goods that I would be interested in, and I would be able to buy whatever you produce only if there is peace in my kingdom. And when there is peace in my kingdom, people have money, because wars always bankrupt you, always make the treasury empty. And so that is the reason why everyone wanted peace, so that it benefited everyone. Everyone was happy, everyone was minding his own business, everyone was making money. So that's what it was. It was the adventurous policy of Ramaraya, Alaya Ramaraya, basically, who tried to play off one sultan against the other, that led the sultans to combine together and decisively defeat him. Yeah, Alaya Ramaraya, that is the last Hindu ruler of Vijayanagar, he started essentially, this line clearly suggests, he started interfering in the internal affairs of these three kingdoms and wanted, it's like a divide and rule policy. And he wanted that they should fight amongst each other so that he could benefit. And now this was something which had never happened before. People like Raja Krishnadev Rai would never indulge in such practices, and they were absolutely happy when everyone was minding his own business. business. No one was infringing into the territories of anyone else, and so that kept everyone happy. That maintained peace. But Alaya Ramaraya, he started intervening and interfering in the internal matters, which complicated the situation and ultimately led to the destruction of Vijayanagar Empire. The Rayas and the Nayaks, that is page number 175, among those who exercised power in the empire were military chiefs who usually controlled forts and had armed supporters. These chiefs often moved from one area to another and in many cases were accompanied by peasants looking for fertile lands in which to settle. These chiefs were known as Nayaks and they usually spoke Telugu or Kannada. Many Nayaks submitted to the authority of the kings of Vijayanagar, but they often rebelled and had to be subdued by military action. Nothing new here, students, as you can understand as students of history. This is something that happens everywhere in all kingdoms, all empires, all civilizations, all countries, anywhere on the planet, whereby this is something which I told you even yesterday, that if the ruler happens to be a very strong one, someone like Chandragupta Maurya or Akbar or Ashoka, then everyone falls in line. No one dare kind of break the line, right? But then the moment these military generals and these local governors, and in this case the Rayas and the Nayaks and these military generals, the moment they get an inkling that the ruler happens to be slightly, he's on a shaky ground, he's not as good as his probably dad or his granddad was, then they start showing their true colors. And then cases of insubordination start happening, and then they start asking for more and more rights, more and more autonomy, which gradually weakens the empire, and ultimately the whole thing kind of fizzles off. The Amara Nayaka system was a major political innovation of the Vijayanagar Empire. It is likely that many features of this system were derived from the Ikhta system of the Delhi Sultanate. Students, this paragraph is important because you would see that Ikhta system, which in the Mughal times was known as basically the Iqtadari system. You know, this was the system of tax collection, which you would study, in the coming chapters. The Amara Nayakas were, and this was essentially students a system which was very popular. It was not just that it was invented by Mughals, but in those years, almost every kingdom and every powerful ruler, every ruler of a large kingdom or a large geography, that's what he would do. Okay, rather than getting into micromanagement of things, that is what he would do. This is essentially Iqtadari system is about the delegation of authority and power. You know, during the peace times, the rulers are not on the military mode, right? During the peacetime, everyone is minding his own business. The ruler gives you a great amount of autonomy, to mind your own business. You can keep your soldiers, and that would help you to maintain the peace and law and order in your area, and all that is fine. It is only when you have been under attack or some kind of, things going out of hand, when the enemies attack you, that is when, all this. System comes into play, and that is what was Iqtidari system. The Amar Nayaks were military commanders who were given territories to govern by a raya. They collected taxes and dues from peasants, craftspersons, and traders in the area. They retained part of the revenue for personal use and for maintaining a stipulated contingent of horses and elephants. These contingents provided the Vijayanagar kings with an effective fighting force with which they brought the entire southern peninsula under their control. Some of the revenue was also used for the maintenance of temples and irrigation works. So you get the point, right? Now, with this kind of system, students, where the local Nayaks have the authority, the local military commanders have the power to maintain their own army, and or rather, if not army, basically the contingents, the armed contingents, and they could maintain it. And it is only when Vijayanagar, or for that matter, the kingdom, is under threat, then they are asked to contribute. Now, this kind of system can work, and only work if the ruler happens to be very powerful, magnetic, great in administration, and only then he would that command that kind of respect, whereby in spite of having this kind of power, the military generals still listen to him, still respect him, and still consider him as their leader. And this cannot work with a system where the ruler happens to be weak. Thank you.